they're leaving tomorrow night to go to GRT, and then they'll be back.
All right, and welcome to another edition of Race Talk Live Online. I can never get that spit out, Dave. You're going to have to text it to me so I can read it and get it right. Do that for me, would you please? Thanks so much, folks, for joining us live here at Chuck's Bar, 600 North Santa Fe. Come on down and get your favorite adult beverage. Join us for dinner. Come on down and visit with these guys. They're always glad to have you around. Tonight, Bobby's done another good job of putting together a show. You know, you brought in Jeff Olson now, and we've had Jeff on for about 5 minutes 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, he was a fill-in
2
weeks ago, and he didn't get to talk much, and I know Jeff can talk way more than that, so we thought we'll give him another shot.
And then we brought Mr. GRT here, Derrick Klima, back on the show. So.
I never have anything to talk about.
If it was race season, we could, about who you rubbed up or whatever, whoever you beat into. But lots of stuff going on in the off-season. Derrick's got deals on aluminum, all kinds of stuff we can talk about.
You know, we just came off the weekend of having the, what did they actually call that racers auction out in Hayes? I know Nick Bauman was putting it on from out there. Anyway, had a good crowd there, had a neat little trade show. That's the first time I'd attended that, and that's a neat little trade show and auction they got going out there.
Had to catch up on some racers gossip anyway.
There you go. That's what they were always.
Go to buy anything, at least you go out there and catch up, see who's doing what.
They had some booths out there. I know Bobby Bills had one. Extreme Motorsports had a booth. Precise had a booth. IMCA had a booth. BSB. Who am I missing? I know there was some others.
Racetracks have booths out there.
Yes, Line Speedway, RPM Speedway. That's right. So, yeah, it was a neat little deal. And like Derrick said, kind of neat to see everybody again in wintertime. And so, yeah, had a good time.
I didn't make it. I heard it was a good show. I was out chasing late model parts. That's where I was, and picked up a bunch down south. So that helped me out tremendously.
Good.
Bumpers. Bumpers. I'm going to need bumpers this year.
What did you get? Something secret down there? You had to go clear down there to get something?
Bumpers.
Oh, that's what you went and got.
I had to get master build bumpers.
Well, I got you needing a few of them this summer, so yeah.
Yeah, I'm not going to be racing with you this year that much. What's the story there?
Well, I don't think so anyway. I talked to Delbert and Sam some. You know, it makes it kind of tough. They've got the car mostly in Belleville, you know, and I'm selling GRT modifieds now, and I sold some last winter, and I got about 8 of them here that I got sold that people are going to be running for me next year, and I need to be racing one, you know, I suppose, if that's what I'm trying to sell and help people go, you know, and mine actually isn't going to be done maybe at the start of the season, may not be till about the 1st of May or so I don't know if Sliner rains out as many times as it did last year, maybe I won't miss anything.
You'll be right in there, yeah.
Otherwise, I'm going to do that, and I may do some late model racing still yet, too. We haven't really made a commitment for sure.
I kind of counted you out. Dang it.
I'm going to play tinker around with modified some this year.
I kind of figured that's the way it's going. You had tremendous success early on. What are you calling this business venture you got going on now? Can we tell them?
Yeah, Dirt Racing Source, I guess. You know, I started that a couple of years ago up in Belleville, but I moved down here to Bill's Truck and Auto. Most of my customers are from down here, or if they're not, I'm a lot closer to them than I were in Belleville. There's really only one race car in Belleville, which is Tyler Fry.
Yeah.
And at that time, you know, everything was sponsored to him by the BMS guys. So, you know, I didn't really have any customers in Belleville, but I got a lot of awesome customers down here that have been my customers for years, and so they stop by the shop most every day. There's a stream of them coming in for aluminum or needing this or that. And I also started a body shop there called Collision Pros, so I do some body work a little bit on the side. Got to do something that makes money down there besides the race car stuff, because sometimes that's not as profitable on some of that stuff. I just like helping a lot of the guys out. But I do it down at Bill's Truck and Auto, and Bill's has been happy to have me in there, and we have a pretty good time down there.
And I'm enjoying it too. It gives me a place to hang out.
I've been behind on some sheet metal jobs and working on some cars, so he comes down after work and works several hours every evening and on the weekends.
That's where he's been.
That's where he's been.
Figured somebody had him tied up.
Yeah.
And then they're going to roll that B6. Well, I don't know. We'll let Bobby talk about the B6 machine and See if they're going to roll that out of the trailer or what they're going to do for next year.
Yeah, it'll come out of the trailer. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
The new B6 or the.
There you go. That's
new-
what I'm.
new-
That's where I'm going
is there-
after.
The new
is there a new
B6.
one
I don't
coming?
know. It's up to Bobby to let that cat out of the bag. It depends. Where's it at?
I think it's still in Arkansas on the tubing rack.
Hasn't been bent yet.
Yeah. Yeah. We're kind of anxiously waiting. Yep.
Uh-oh.
Yep.
You know, it's dwindling down. You know, the banquet is for Salina Speedway is the 6th of February. That's not but about 3-4 weeks away.
Yep. That's coming right up. And
Yeah. Chili Bowl's this weekend, by the way.
Yep.
And then this is you always look forward to the Chili Bowl.
This
because-
is always a good time of year. We got the Chili Bowl coming, and then we got Super Bowl is right around the corner, and then Daytona 500, and then we're racing
Won't be long.
shortly after.
It's like 11 weeks or something. Somebody
Yes,
said.
I
11
know.
weeks.
Really?
I got to build a body for mine pretty quick and put shocks and springs and an engine. I'm like, I looked at
Think
it the other
the-
day and I was like, oh.
I think the first show close to here would probably be Beatrice, won't it?
Yeah.
Be the
in
first
March.
one?
Yeah.
Yep.
And I know the
So-
schedule's out for Salina Speedway tentative, but I
Yep.
can't tell you when we start. I suppose I could look it up on my phone, but
In my pocket.
do you?
Yep. But
Don't be so secretive. It's not like it's a big
Bobby's got it
secret.
all, but he's got it
here,
in,
let me dig it out.
And Jeff, let's chat with you for a few minutes. Been around racing for a long time. Going to get back into it this year, huh?
Yeah, we're going to go play around a little bit after taking a year off and trying to get some personal stuff, back in order again. But, we're going to go have some fun,
Sport mod this year?
Yeah, I think so. We talked to a couple other people about a few other things, but nothing really developed. And, I just didn't kind of dwindling down, after all the years that I ran, and just going to go have some fun.
Okay.
Got some new things going on.
What chassis are you going to drive?
We're doing right now we're going back to the Fastmaster.
Oh, you got one of those.
Yeah, it was a car that actually, when David built it, it started out as one of David's cars, and I hated to say it, but Derrick at the time was at BMS, and the people that actually sponsored me the car said they didn't want a BMS. So nothing
happens,
against
that
you.
happens.
It wasn't because of you.
Sponsors have a way of doing that sometimes.
They did.
It's weird what their issues may well be or may not be. It's just the way it is.
It's that pocketbook can speak a lot of words.
And then they may just want something different than everybody else has. It's weird how it works in racing, folks. But it's anyhow. But yeah. So you end up with one of those Fastmasters.
Yeah,
huh?
and it eventually it went into something that I kind of, like I always do, I carved up, welded it back together a few times, but we're not done with it, I don't think, as far as that end of it goes.
Jeff builds
So-
brackets like crazy. You want to talk about adjustable race cars? His are like a nightmare.
I think we got into that story a long time ago.
Oh my
Yeah.
God! And you can dial yourself right out. So
Which-
Derrick, you like these GRTs?
Yeah, I haven't. It's fun working with somebody, with being, around BMS stuff for so long. You sort of get used to just doing the same thing or not looking outside the box too far, And so you deal with these guys, and they've built, 1,300 or so modifieds, and 3,000 or 4,000, 3,000 plus late models, I think, by now. They've built a lot of race cars, and they've got a lot of upper end people that race them, and a lot of the bigger sanctioning bodies, USMTS and UMP cars, and so their approach to doing things is different, on suspension or the adjustments that you would make. And the first two cars that we got in last year, Sherfick and Clay Money's down there. I went down there and met all the guys and met Joe and Zach. He's kind of one of their parts guys that puts everything together. And those are the first two cars we picked up, and I bolted several together since then, and I've had really, really good luck with them. Everybody's had some great success with them, and it's just fun dealing with somebody new and a different approach to making the cars go.
I've driven several different versions of their late models, 3 of them, and they've always been really helpful, even for a guy like me. You know, you can call up and get all kinds of information. And I have talked to Joe on several different occasions, but now I'm in a different car. But, you know, we've all heard about somebody's car that didn't work one particular year. You know, since you were involved in the manufacturing phase for so long, what's your theory and what's your feelings on how a car is put together? I mean, you change some geometry up front, and you could be right out of the ballpark pretty quickly. Or talking to one of your fabricators, he says you weld that car up the same way every time, and it makes it work. What's your thoughts?
Oh, I think there's a lot of truth to that. You know, that's our nightmare, is thinking about next year and what we're going to change, and then hoping that when we start racing that we didn't mess something up. You know, and every chassis builder has ups or downs. I don't care who you are, how many cars you build. GRT, Dirtworks, you know, Sadoff. Everybody's had built some crazy good cars, and then turn around and just have a pathetic season or two, you know, trying to figure out what you did or what you changed. And luckily, for the most part, when I was there at BMS through 2012 anyway, we had a pretty good run with stuff. You know, we had our ups and downs, won national championships, and then had some people that weren't as good as they thought they should have been, or thought that the cars weren't as good as they thought they would have been. And so you go back to the drawing board, and you know, in this business you gotta keep trying and doing stuff, you know, all the time, because if you don't, the next guy is, and pretty soon he'll come up with something better than you, and everybody's buying that, you know. Well, it's some of the areas we used to sell a bunch of cars to. Pretty soon they're buying somebody else's cars, you know,
Sure.
and there's no BMS cars out there. That happened out in Vegas and California. We sold a bunch of cars out there for a while, and then all of a sudden they were all buying Shaw cars because they had over-rail cars. And then, so you ride the wave when you can ride it, you know, and the things are good. I had a pretty good welder there that, whether he did it right or wrong, he did it the same way every time. Glenn Bird was my fabricator since 96 or so, I think, and built lots of cars. And I think that he just did them the same way every time, so the cars were definitely repeatable. We never really built anything that we really struggled with. It seemed like our cars always got better every year, but it seemed like some of the other guys' cars got better than ours, you know, so
Sure.
It made us work harder and come back with something else, you know.
And you were driving those cars in those years too, so, you know, it's pretty important, I think, to have somebody with some decent feedback.
I don't know if I was the right one to get the decent feedback, but I did have some pretty good group of drivers that, besides like David Murray or something, but that we always knew was going to go win races in our cars. There's a lot of average type racers, and if you try something and they go better, generally it works for most everybody else. And honestly, that's actually probably what happened with David Murray. See, although he was a crazy talented driver, generally if something worked better for him, it worked better for all of our drivers across the board. And like I say, Bird he couldn't figure out things, like he wouldn't design things himself, like just decide to put a shock mount somewhere else. But I'd go back there and I could tell him where a shock mount needed to be, and he put it there the same place every time after that, you
Sure.
know. So which was nice, you know. He wasn't trying to design things his own, and so it made a lot of consistency in the cars. And he put, you know, like I say, welded them up. I'd get bored up front sometimes if the phone wasn't ringing. I'd go back there and I'd put on a welding helmet. I love to weld, you know, and I'm a good welder. But I'd start welding. He'd say, hey, what are you doing? I said, well, I mean, it's cut and notched, and you got it tacked together. Why can't I weld it, you know? And he put, just because it's not the same order that he normally welds them in. And some bars get put in crooked because by the time you get done welding it up, it's straight, you know. So he knew all those things, and he didn't like somebody jumping in and getting ahead of him on something, you know. So
Even though you were trying to help him out.
Yeah, I was trying to, but had a lot of fun there for a lot of years. And like you say, I know there are some cars that struggle from time to time, and you just got to be super cautious on things that you change, because sometimes little things change the whole project.
You know, there was you know, I don't want to talk bad about anybody's chassis, but there was the Dirtworks chassis that they changed one year, and they changed one bar, and nobody could make that car go. You remember those struggles, Bobby?
Yeah.
And I think that happens with everybody's chassis at some time or another. We just try something different, and it'll either work or it won't.
Like
was it like the DW11 or something? Was that the
like
car? I remember the number, or I'm not real familiar.
11 or 12.
You know? And I think as chassis builders, we get real stubborn thinking that that's not it, you know. So we keep looking or changing something else, and then all of a sudden we got 5 or 10 things changed, you know. We don't know where we're at, you know.
You know, that's kind of cool that we're learning about, dealing with GRT. They pretty much got their set ways, and I mean,
they're fairly
you don't
stubborn.
change 'em.
Yeah. They've got a system. You know, when I was down there a while back, they were behind 65 modifieds and 2 late models. So it tells you what cars are selling. You know, but it's tough.
Isn't that a damn shame?
It's tough to get them to change a lot. You know, you gotta. I've had them leave some stuff off, and I have them do just a couple of things different for the cars that I sell, and it was tough to get them to leave those things off or make those changes. They have to believe in the change too, or that there's a reason for it, you know. And but the end product has been, like I say, it's been nice working with them. We've had a lot of fun. I've got an awesome group of guys that have bought them and have, you know, that makes my life a little easier because I got some good guys around them, and they're going to go win races. And they're not the best car out there. Nobody knows who the best chassis is out there right now. You just got to put something together good and right, and have some good guys in them and some feedback, and that's what we're doing. I don't know that GRT's any better than anybody else. I hope to, you know, I'm a pro GRT right now for sure. I love working with those guys, but I don't think they know everything there is to know about building cars. But they got a pretty nice platform there for us to work with and my guys to work with. So it's been, and like Brian, he's gonna get to debut one of them here, I think, probably sometime here. And he's a good driver. He's been racing cars lots of years, and I'm anxious to see. He's had BMS stuff forever, you know.
It's all he's ever had.
It's all he's ever driven as far as the modified goes.
Yeah.
I sold him the one he's got now in 2010, so he had like 5 or 6 years on that same car, and doing really good with it. So I hope that I promised him he'd do even better with the GRT since it had to be a lot newer than that thing he's been running and straighter. But so I hope he has a good amount of success.
You know, you watch Brian drive, and he's one of these drivers. He's really, really. He's really aggressive in his heat races, but he's really consistent, and he's really calm behind the wheel. I've never seen him get irritated, but he's fairly aggressive. He knows what he has to do when he gets out there.
We need to run 50-lap features every night.
Really?
Because it takes him like half the race before he starts going. He hangs around back in 9th or 10th, and then with, you know, 5 or 6 to go.
Pretty soon here he comes.
Then there he is. So, yeah, he makes me kind of nervous sometimes.
I'm sure he does.
But no, he's a lot of fun. All them guys. Like I say, I'm also anxious too to have Curtis going in a modified too. It's going to be neat to watch him. I know he's going to start out in the modified, and then he'll improve. He'll get better.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. He's a good.
I
good
figured that
too.
step was coming as well.
Yep. So it'll be fun. I'm anxious for this summer.
And which car is he getting into?
Kurt's he'll be in the BMS that Brian had.
The 5-year-old car?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yep. So.
Well, he can't hurt it.
No.
No, it's been tested.
Yeah.
And it's a heck of a car. I mean, Brian really was getting better and better every year with that thing. You know, he had his best year ever, I think. And
we keep saying that Klima better get us going good in the GRT, or we're going to have the BMS back.
Yeah.
So Jeff's thoughts on your Fastmaster coming back out. Of course, you don't get a lot of tech support on that thing anymore, so it's going to be you doing it.
Yeah, pretty much. It's just kind of a trial and error thing on the car. When we last ran it, we was trying a few things. There was, I think at one time or another, we were underneath the car. You came out to do something, and you happened to see something that we didn't see. So we made some changes with it, and it put us closer, and we went back and changed a little bit more stuff, and we got it even better. So the last time we ran it, outside of some drive shaft problems, car was actually pretty fast.
Was it?
It's not one that I'm real happy with. be honest with you, I'm not trying to be biased or anything. I'd rather be in a GRT. I've tried to get a GRT since the day I went on a cruise with Joe Garrison and Bill Fry and them guys back in, 90, I think 7. Went to the Bahamas with them and had a blast. And, of course, back then Larry McDaniels had the car. And
Sure.
But
They didn't build that. Didn't have many modifieds out back
they didn't.
then.
Actually, they all but basically gave me one time. I had to come up with X amount of money, but I mean they gave me like all the suspension stuff, and I couldn't get it done. And but that's about the only car we haven't been in, and we wanted to be in. So maybe one of these days before I bow out, I'll get into one.
Unfortunately, they don't give anything away
No,
anymore.
they don't. They wouldn't even give me
that shock and spring package and whatever you had.
that I think was all Larry. I mean, Joe wouldn't even buy me a beer in the Bahamas. I mean, that's how tight they were.
In fact, I told Brian what his frame, powder coated with body and interior was, and he said that's. He told me that was more, he told me what he paid for his BMS in 2010, and I said that won't even buy your body and interior and frame from GRT. So, everything's gone up, but it's high quality, nice stuff. And this day and age, people are spending a lot of time and money on their cars, and they make some really nice stuff. But sorry to interrupt your story there.
No, jump right in there.
Yeah, it's like I don't know about Derrick, but a lot of things. You were talking about how nice they have things, but if you look at a lot of these cars, in fact, tonight we was looking at a set of front spindles and stuff. These looked really nice. Mm-hmm. They were like $425 a set, complete and everything like that. But the prettiness doesn't make you fast.
No.
Sometimes just simple and good fabrication, and being a welder myself, like Derrick and everything. You get kind of picky about the way things are done, and the cars that are fast out there, whether they be the GRTs or the Harris cars or anything of that nature, they guys, they study how they put the cars together and how the welds react to the tubing and and to the chassis and then of course with the stamp frames we got nowadays and stuff, how them are done and put together and the way they're aligned. There's a lot of science in them, so I think really the cars that are the fastest are the ones that they keep simple, and they make them simple to work on, and they just do a good job, and that's what makes them quick.
With all the different sanctioning bodies out there, IMCA for one is here. Of course, there's other sanctioning bodies around. Does that make it difficult to put a car together for somebody? I mean, in this area, you're probably pretty much all IMCA, but as far as GRT is concerned, are they familiar enough with those?
I think IMCA was kind of some of their smallest class. They were, which has been kind of nice because actually they've probably learned how to go faster by racing with some of them other sanctioning guys. Those guys, you've all been to some of the USMTS races at Wichita, and it's crazy how much faster they are than the IMCA guys, And you learn a lot, I'm sure, building cars for that class of people, which has trickled down to some of their IMCA stuff. But they haven't, we haven't seen a lot of their cars in IMCA. They've always had them, of course, but up until last couple of years, with Grabowski and some of those guys, and Terry Phillips finally driving one and winning some races, that that we're seeing that now the IMCA people buying their cars. But most of my stuff's for sure IMCA, but you seem to want to look and listen and learn what the other guys are doing in the other sanctions that have helped the same car, go generally can help, you can learn some of that stuff to make your car go better in the IMCA world, although there's a lot of parts that we're not able to use in the IMCA.
Speaking of USMTS and IMCA, and GRT guys got kind of a bad rap there when they started finding a bunch of frames that weren't actually built right, and they turned right around and and fixed it and made everything right, and I assume they got everything going now.
We all remember the story of all the grinders running out in Vegas.
Out in Vegas,
yeah.
That was kind of when it all started. Yeah,
it was something I think that the rule. Well, I don't know exactly. I fixed some of those things. I mean, I know what it took to fix them, but I was down and I looked at their front end jig, how they put those stubs together.
Now, are those a real jig or are those the Chinese jig?
They're the stamped steel, the stamped lower stamped frames like we get from
apart.
Southwest Speed, from wherever, I don't know, but the same place that everybody
they're
gets
not
them.
a real Chevelle or a real
Right.
anymore.
You know, they come in
Pieces.
9 or 10 pieces that you have to weld
it
together. And their jig was pretty primitive for what they were doing, and they didn't really actually jig those rear body mount holes. All they did was jig the lower control arm mounts and the steering box and idler arm. You know, those are the things that make any difference really about suspension wise. And where the frame rails laid, it's just where they went. So when IMCA got to looking at frame widths and some of the measurements on some of the holes, they were all over the place kind of. And I fixed 5 or 6 of those cars, and we just had to relocate those plates on the top of the stub, the top and the bottom plate, just to make them measure right. Didn't change the handling of the car, didn't change any suspension pickup points or anything. It was literally just a frame width measurement, and it was it was too bad we had to cut up a lot of cars kind of to get those measurements to come out the same, because it didn't affect the car, at all. But it was kind of a bad deal. In fact, that came to a head right before Terry Sherfick's car was built last year. They actually closed down the shop for about a week and rejigged their stubs, and they built a new, I was down there, and they built a new jig to put their stubs together so that those holes were where IMCA said they needed to be. And, everybody said, well, their cars aren't going to be any good now, because they thought that was some big deal that they were doing to cheat the rules. But, they've had the biggest successful year they've ever had with these stubs built this way. So I knew there wasn't anything with that. It was just a bad deal. We had to cut some cars up.
Talking about that, the guys have always in the past used the stock frames, gone out and tried to find Chevelle frames, and now they're into Monte Carlo frames, and the 2 different years of Chevelles, and those things are about extinct. I mean, there isn't too many of the chassis builders that aren't using the aftermarket.
Clear back from 64 to 68 stuff, 72. I mean, that's a lot of years ago, 40, 50 years ago. So a lot of those cars were wrecked, and if they weren't wrecked, they're rusted up by now. And so we've all had to eventually go to those fabricated stubs,
Back when you was at BMS, where you guys were using the stock frames, did you have how are you finding them? You're just making phone calls all over?
Yeah, I had,
you have some sources.
Seemed like there was 10 or 20 people looking for them all the time, but there was a handful of people that always brought me, 5 or 10 at a time. And the problem with that was if you got 5 or 10 at a time in, and you had to pay X amount of dollars for them, and almost probably 1 out of 3 you couldn't use, and you get them disassembled, and you make some cuts on them and get rid of the scrap stuff, and you send them to the sandblaster, and they come back, and you go to put them on the jig, and they won't fit. Something's always, or the sandblaster, when they're sandblaster, they blast a hole in them because there was not enough material there, and then the other ones don't fit on the jig, or you find that they've been bent or whatever. And so it was a struggle. We ended up spending a lot of money on front stubs, and so we pretty much used all brand new stubs after that. There was a lot of speculation on whether the new stubs were as good or not, or softer material, or vice versa. I don't think we ever pinpointed any car that was any better or worse because we used a new stub versus an old stub. If they're put together right and they bolt in your jig and the pickup points are the same, we had perfect luck with all of them.
Jeff, what's your preference as far as front stub? What are you going to be driving next year?
It's just Chevelle. It's the Chevelle frame. Now, I actually drove a BMS metric car one time, and it was a Z-Link car, and I hated it. Mm-hmm. It wasn't because it was BMS. I'm just saying that's the brand name, because I had drove another metric car, but I hated the metric cars. I don't like the way the front end feels under them. And in fact, I think it was the other car was one that Sam Smith had, was the American-made cars when he started up in Beloit. And Kenny Cross had it, and they were, it was a nice-looking car, well-built, and The guy building it, really made a good showing. He was a good late model driver and a modified driver and everything. But Sam come and wanted to know if I would hot lap Kenny Cross's car one night after the race at Saline, and he asked me what I thought, and I said, well, I wouldn't give you a plug nickel for the car because I didn't like the way it worked. That's just my preferences. I like the Chevelle frames. I like the way you can do things with them. So
we had a metric car, Belleville car, and not a thing wrong with it. We was trying to sell it. Nobody'd buy it. Nobody'd buy it. Nobody'd buy it. So Derrick thought, we maybe ought to start thinking about cutting these metric frames off and putting Chevelle clips on them. And so Brian hauled his perfectly good car up there, cut the front stub off, and put a Chevelle clip on it and took it out. And it was like, night and day difference in it.
Yeah, it was too bad we can't use those metric clips because they were like $50. People were glad to get rid of them, or they were $50. And the Chevelle ones, you buy these rusted up, junked up things for $300, and you get to use one out of 3. So you got $500 or $600 in them, and then you still got to take them to the sandblaster, and you got to spend 5 hours of cutting on them and to get them so they'll set on your jig. But and those metrics, it's hard for me to believe that we weren't able to make those cars as good as I thought they should have been, and that Chevelle just fixed a lot of the problems, and made the car so much better. But it was a tough deal to switch. I didn't want to switch, and finally, after you get so many people beating you up and saying, I want one of your cars, but it's got to be a Chevelle. And Sadoff went through the same thing. Heck, the Impala he built, and he still up until not very long ago would even use Chevelles or drive one himself. But I'm assuming that I think he does all those now probably. But it was tough to switch, but they're for sure night and day difference.
And then there for a while you got into the longer wheelbase cars.
Yeah.
Remember those?
I remember those.
We were talking about that the other day. 100 and what were they?
112, I think.
12 base cars. Yeah.
I hated going to work those days because the phone rang way too much, and it was everybody complaining about the same thing. The
car wouldn't turn, would it?
Just wasn't as good. They had good rear percent. That's kind of why we did it, because back then we needed some more rear percent, and it fixed that problem for sure. But none of them were as good through the corner. And there was a handful of people that went really well. Wasn't it Brian that went good in one or not?
Brian had one.
I thought he had one.
And then he sold it to Mike Dungy.
So, and then years later, people that were buying or selling BMS cars, their question was, do you have a BMS car? Yeah. Is it metric? Yeah. And the next question was, is it a long stub or a short one? And you knew you might as well just hang the phone up if it was a long one, because nobody wanted them. And but it was just something we tried, and it was one of them deals. And to be honest, that DMR car, when it first came out in the middle of 2011, it was a joy. And those things, with the help of some people, those cars were really good. And the phone didn't ring, or if it did, it was people that were just jumping for joy. They had never been in the top 4 before, and now they're winning races. And so it was a nice deal. That was nice working with people that year. But prior to that, it was just you have your ups and downs, like I say, in that business. And I got to say one thing. You're talking about Fastmaster, and David Brock's a friend of mine too. We've talked race car stuff forever. And at the time, I didn't think of him as much of like a fabricator type guy, but I got to give him props. He built some pretty good cars, and I know some guys that went pretty well in them. And there was a car that Wheelchair Rick owned, still does maybe, or something.
Yeah.
But that car won a lot of races, and I think whoever was winning some races in it, and then Jerry Phillips drove it one night and won at Hayes in it.
Yep.
And then, but I guess there was just something special. We all have those cars that there's something special in, but yeah, that car went really good, and so those were plenty capable cars too.
Yep. Roger Peck had one. He won a lot of races.
Yep.
They're very good cars. I mean, I just happened to get in a situation with David that we were trying. He actually that year built 3 different cars, and David was kind of like what you was with the GRT. He didn't drive one; he drove a late model, and of course, a lot of people gave him flack about it. Well, he had came to me and wanted to build a car, and 2 other guys, and I told him, I says, I'd never been in a 4-bar car. So I says, I don't know why you want to pick me. I mean, I don't know nothing about a 4-bar car, but we went very good in the car. We found some problems with it, and we enjoyed it. And I had a lot of high hopes with it when we were into modifieds.
Oh.
But we changed it, went back to sport mods. So,
Years ago, I got into modified, one that Mark Franklin had built, because I was thinking about going and racing with you guys in this modified thing. And we had the track one afternoon. Truck let us have the track. I think I went through 20 gallons of fuel, and I think I beat down every inside guardrail they had at that place at the time. I could not get a feel for that thing. So you'll never worry about me sitting in one of those cars.
Thank God somebody changed your mind.
Yeah. Thanks.
To help you out, Bill, that car was quite a car too. I got a hot lap at one night too, and I beat the outside wall down. So we made it. But that car had 4 different link bars on it.
Mark
don't know why.
built that car, and Mark did okay with it, you know. And I was really seriously thinking about going modified racing at the time. I got out of that thing that afternoon. It's like, you guys can have this thing. I'm not.
You never did like the open wheel stuff, though.
Nope.
That's.
Give me a big, fat, wide body.
Who talked you into late model racing? That's who I want to talk to.
Don Collins.
Don Collins.
I had that pro stock that one year, and I really did pretty good with it, and had a decent year going. Then I piled it up into turn 1 wall. Won the A feature one weekend, and then piled that son of a gun up in the wall really bad. And I thought, heck, I don't know what to do next. And Collins says, let's go late model racing. There you have it.
They've helped me out over the years, too. They've helped me with some motor stuff. And I hot-lapped a car that Dean Woods was driving for him one time at the Hutch racetrack, fairgrounds. And those are a bunch of good racer guys, too. Been around a long time racing and still at it.
Derrick, out of all the years you've been racing, what's probably your biggest win that you can think of?
Yeah, I don't know. That's a pretty good question. I remember being the excitedest. I don't know. I had some late model sportsman wins when I was fairly young, and running that thing. And I won seemed like there was a 2,000 or 3,000 to win race at Salina. I ended up winning that thing. I remember being really happy with that. But something that happened, I won a big mini stock race at Salina. Clark Fritz blew up on a lap or two from the end of the Kansas Nationals or whatever it was. I remember I got a trophy taller than me and
really?
Paid $600, and I was on cloud 9. And probably the next one was I had neck surgery in 2011. So after we started building these DMR cars, everybody was winning, and but I hadn't got to drive one yet. And I remember I missed part of that, about half of the year, because of my neck surgery. And so we finally got everybody else's car done, and we built me a DMR, and I was anxious to try it out. And it was Salina's 1,000 to win topless show was coming up, and my car was a bare frame on Monday morning, was a bare frame powder coated, and I raced it Friday at Salina. Had a bunch of good guys in the shop, of course. I didn't do it all by myself, but I had some good guys in the back. We bolted that thing together, motor and suspension and sheet metal and everything, and I raced it Friday and won that race. It was I started mid-pack, got up to seem like 4th or 5th, and I got into a wreck, and I went back to 18th or 19th at one time. I think Murray and some of those guys was there. He ended up breaking or something. But I got clear up through there, and I won that thing. And people were coming up like, are those cars really as good as they –
oh, you had nothing to do with it, right?
It's like, I guess, they really are. Because a lot of people won their first night out, and for us to put a new car together at a race like that, I wasn't expecting that. And that was probably about the most excited, actually, that I can remember, is being and winning a race, because it was quite an accomplishment to go from having nothing on Friday or Monday except a frame and racing it Friday and winning a pretty decent race, and getting spun out in the middle of the race. So it seems like those days are almost over. It's hard to do that anymore, There's so many good people, and whatever class you decide, you're never going to – it's tough to go from the front to the back or vice versa, anymore, hardly in any class. But
Jeff,
it was a lot of fun.
Jeff, what's your proudest moment in a race car?
Oh, goodness.
Because you've raced a little bit of everything. I mean, you've even done some
yeah, I've I've played with a late model a little bit out in Colby. I did some hot lapping in a sprint car. Probably my favorite, though, was actually the Belleville Nationals back in, I think it was 84, when I actually got to run a full-size midget at the Midget Nationals. I really enjoyed that. I got to run against, people like Stan Fox and well, in fact, the guy I started against was Johnny Parsons Jr. So, when you see guys like that, you hope you have a good, clean diaper to start the race off with because, they're doing especially in them cars, and that was my first time out in one. I've done street stock, hobby stock, modified, now sport mod thing, and, I never had a preference as far as cars on what I drive, but I always kind of went towards the open wheel stuff. The midget and sprint car stuff was what I really wish I would have headed towards, because I found out early in my modified career that your driving style in a modified isn't the same as it is in a midget. And I spent too many years trying to convince myself that it was, and it wasn't, So, but no, I'd say the midget was probably my highlight. I really, that was just where my heart was at, was in the open wheel stuff like that. And of course, Belleville's my favorite track. I've ran up there. I've done well up there on the NCRA events that we've ran. I mean, we had some top 10 stuff up there, and cars that weren't top 10 cars at an IMCA show at Salina, and we took the same car and went up there with it. So I think combining with my favorite car, my favorite track, that was my highlight.
What are you looking for this year? What do you want to do?
I want to have fun. We want to kind of rekindle a little bit on our business.
And your business is?
Speedline Racing Products.
Okay.
We had some things happen in the last couple years, and it was kind of out of my control and everything. We've never looked to be a full-time business. We've never, looked to try to take business away from anybody. We've always wanted to be the friendly competitor. We want to be somebody that, Derrick's helped me a bunch over the years when he was at BMS, and down here, I hope that, we can return the favor on that sometime. Mark Brown and I, we've always, even though we're not in the same business, we've been best of friends. We go to football games all the time together. But we kind of took a step backwards last year with a lot of stuff, and thank goodness it come out looking good. And this year we're changing some things around. My wife's going to be spend more time at the track with me. She's hasn't done that since 2005. So it'll be kind of nice to be able to handle, some of the, in the trailer stuff and everything. And I just want to enjoy racing. I don't want to get, crazy about it. Every time I do, it seems like I double fold. I mean, the last time I said I was going to do this, I ended up with a 40-foot trailer, 2 cars, 2 motors, driving for somebody, my own car, the whole thing. So I just, but this year I want it to be a family deal with my dad.
Sure.
He's getting to be 80 years old. He still sets up gears for 3/4 of the guys around here. He loves doing it, and I have a rear end jig, so we still do some repairs and, on the rear ends and stuff. And, I bet I haven't spent 2 days in the shop in over 2 years now. And, I just want to get back out there and I want to have some fun, enjoy things. And at the end of the year, I'll evaluate where we're at, and if I want to get serious and do something, we'll see where we're at then.
Where'd you come up with your number at?
Well, everybody wants to be 18 again, don't they? Really, that's a funny.
Okay.
It's a funny deal. It's we were going to change numbers because I used to be 50, which was my football number back in high school. That was my first modified run. Was a guy bought a modified out of Wichita. It was a Dirtworks car, and we came to Salina, and he brought it down. And he says, "Jeff, I want you to drive this for me." So I said, "All right." You know, I never turned down a ride. Didn't matter whether it was a mini stock or skateboard or whatever, you know. And so I jumped in the car, and it was 18, and it just stuck. I mean, of course, everybody thought it was because Bloomquist was my favorite driver.
I knew that.
That's not the truth behind
you
it,
can't
though.
know
but-
Jeff Olson and know that he's not a Bloomquist fan. I mean, you just can't.
Yeah, it's I mean he's my favorite guy, but that story came after I got the number. It's actually the association between them two. You know, when you get my age, you have a lot of stories. You know, and some are good, some you don't ever want to tell.
Some we're not going to tell.
You know, but I actually ordered a set of numbers from a guy, and they were made for Bloomquist, and that's how I got my association with him. Was when I ordered the numbers. Nobody around here did vinyl lettering at the time and had the holographs. And I found this company, and I called them up out in South Carolina, and they said, "Sure, we'll ship them today for you." And I thought, man, this is quick, you know. And they said, "Well, we got like 50 of them here for Scott Bloomquist. We'll just steal out of his pack and send them to you." And I'm going, "Well, who's this guy?" You know. So I said something to the guy, and the guy gave me, you know, an address and stuff. So I phoned down, and I got this lady, and she says, "Well, that's my son." And I said, "Well, they tell me he's a late model driver." And I told her the story. And she says, "Well, you know, he sells stuff and this and that and races full time." And I said, "Well, I don't even know who he is. I have no idea." And but I says, "I'll tell you what." I says, I'll order a T-shirt. Well, they sent me a T-shirt, sent me an autographed book, which was a stock car magazine, and sent me a Christmas card that he had autographed. And when I got it, I looked at it, and this guy's got hair as long as I had at the time.
Yeah.
He had the same number as I had. And his brake pedal was the exact same thing that I had just finished in my shop. And I said, well, if anybody's that dumb to run a reverse brake and clutch pedal like I do, that's the kind of guy I want to start rooting for. So that's what I did. And I've just stepped in with the deal.
Wait a minute. You run your brakes on the left?
I used to. I used to cut my brake pedals and run the brake on the left and the clutch in the center.
Why?
Well, it's in a modified, back in them days, you had a narrow box where your feet were at.
Right.
And I wanted to spread my feet out. And I thought I could have better control when you work the brake in the corner. And so what I used to do is I cut my brake pedals, and I'd switch my pedals around and my master cylinders and stuff, and then I'd lay angle iron. I still do today. I lay angle iron or aluminum angle iron to rest my heel like I used to in the midget. So when I'm out there and the track's rough, my feet don't bounce around, you know, and I keep them steady. And you'd be surprised on how better I do anyhow, better throttle control and better brake control. Now, you get to my age, Alzheimer's kicks in, so you know your feet don't work right, you know.
Do you think, is there a better place we could put Bill's gas pedal, you think, where he could find it?
What a jerk.
Yeah.
What a jerk.
A hand throttle.
Hand throttle, maybe.
Yeah, you know, like,
yeah.
you know, something
Or
like a motorcycle.
Remote
I'm just
control,
kidding, Bill,
maybe.
you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
There you go. There you go.
What'd he say? What'd you say?
Remote
Remote
control,
control.
maybe.
Control from you?
Yeah.
I'd like to run that.
Bill's going to have the only late model cruiser car out there.
Yeah.
I was in the gas this year.
Backwards.
No, I wasn't. I actually got it to turn. You know, you don't ever go to ask Bobby anything at the racetrack, because all he's going to do is look at you and tell you to go drive it. And then he'll say you can't
Yeah.
drive it like you've been doing it.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
Didn't you tell me that?
That's what I
Has
told you.
Bobby ever raced? Has
I
he
never
ever
have.
raced?
There's pictures of him on the internet. Finally,
Bobby,
in a go-kart.
Bobby
Go-kart.
here.
In a go-kart. He was
Yeah.
leading.
You were
I
a
was.
champion one time.
Yeah.
I was.
Yeah, you
And-
beat me on our weekly
Uh,
board game.
I was going to
Dirt
say that, or fantasy racing, maybe.
You know, we used to have little cars. They were about
Yeah, that's right.
about an inch long, and we had a series set up. It was a dirt track. It was circle. It was a board game,
Where was this?
and
Where was this?
We actually you had a payout and everything. You had an entry fee. We got paid weekly. We kept points the whole 9 yards. And I won 3 out of the 4A features, finished second on the one I lost, and Bobby beats me in points and walks the money from me,
Where was this at?
How the hell you remember that?
I told you Jeff would have some stories. Thank God he picked on you. Derrick,
well, yours is a little X-rated. So.
Yeah, we can't talk about mine. Where'd you come up with the 2 at?
That was my dad and grandpa had a late model that they owned it, and they had a hired driver. Ren Alsman raced for him for a while, and Howard Spittler drove a car for a while. I think Shelby Stinson actually drove their car a while, but they generally mainly raced in Nebraska, like at Speed Bowl at Red Cloud there, and their late model car number was always number 2, and I don't know where they came up with it. I think probably just something between my dad and grandpa. They were number 2. And anyway, so yeah, of course, that's where the number 2 came from. Just transpired down the line from them.
Going back to your business side, not only working with GRT, you've got a lot of other people you work with also. You want to name some of the vendors that you're dealing with?
Yeah, that's great. Jay at BSB, we talk quite a bit. I've always got some ideas, and he's pretty knowledgeable. And Delbert, being there as well, we talk back and forth quite a bit, and we think we figure something out all the time anyway, or we tell him we figure out something to change or do, and I see some of that stuff getting changed and incorporated in some of his things that we've learned, over the years. A guy that I rely on actually quite a bit, and I have for a lot of years, is Joel at Close Racing Supply in Pennsylvania. I've probably sold him 100 modified frames, BMS cars over the years, and really intelligent, really bright guy. And I've been out to Pennsylvania racing with him before, and I had Joel raced a couple BMS cars for me in Vegas a few years back, and he's really hands-on. I don't think he's raced himself, but he knows a lot. He's got a lot of the good guys racing for them. They put together GRT cars and some BMS cars, and they actually put together, I think, quite a few of those Beak-built cars by Rudeman now.
Yeah.
So, and they only put together pretty much for high upper end teams, that's got engine programs already and tire program. They just don't deal with any Tom, Dick, and Harry. They only put together X amount of cars, and they kind of have to see your resume before they'll put together a car for you. So what that does is those guys that buy the cars from them have a heck of a program already, and then they go out and win a bunch of races, and so they get a lot of good feedback from them and a lot of people wanting their product. So yeah, I talk to Joel quite a bit. He buys some stuff from me. I buy a lot of stuff from him, and those are the 2 main ones probably that I deal with here quite a bit, And
I've seen that.
Been a huge help.
That spindle you was talking about, was that Close Racing,
that
that 3-piece
Yeah.
spindle? Is he building that himself?
Well, I don't know. There's a machine shop not too far from their place that does that. Joel actually, those Pinto spindle preload spacers that we all kind of run now, he was doing that probably like 6 or 7 years ago or so, and without anybody else knowing, and he finally sent me a couple one day, said, hey, put these in your car, and now he, at the time, was selling them to, JR Motorsports, and of course now there's some other people building them, but he's kind of an innovator on that. He actually built their own ball joints. That it's a smaller diameter ball joint, and he uses it in their control arms, and I bought several of those deals from him. And if you look at his website or Facebook page, Close Racing Supply, there's a lot of kind of cool, pretty innovative stuff on there, and pretty intelligent group of guys out there. They've got an answer for about any question you ask.
That's cool.
How'd you meet him?
He called me one day. They're a reseller of cars. Sure. They don't build them themselves. Kind of like I'm doing now. I just buy a frame and put it together, and that's what they were doing. And they were selling mainly GRT cars, and somehow he knew of Dave Murray, and this had been like in the mid 2000s, I suppose, when I started doing business with him. And he called me one day, kind of wanting to be a dealer, and you get these calls once or twice a week from people wanting to be a dealer, and you don't. But anyway, he was serious about it, and he actually followed through, with whatever plan. I think I made him order 3 or 4 cars, and Randy Hall was the guy's name. A big wins a lot of the E-Mod races out there, I think is what they call them. And Randy won one of our cars, and Joel put together a car. But I met him at Boone, and was probably the first time I actually met him face to face. But he got real interested in our cars from watching him at Boone, I guess, when Murray was kind of on the top of his program there, in 2002, 3, or 4, something like that. And been a good relationship ever since. So it's been a lot of fun with him. If a customer asks me a question that I don't know the answer, I call Joel. Because
he'll know. Huh?
Yep.
Well, Derrick, I know you need to get on and get out of here. You got a couple other things you got to do. Anything you want to cover? Any sponsors or anything like that you want to cover?
Just the Smith the race crew up there. Sam and Delbert and Keith and my parents. They've been a big help up there. I've raced Delbert's late model for about the last 3 years and had a awesome time with those guys. Learned a lot. I learned a lot from them. Hope they learned something from me. And I really learned how dedicated some racers can be, and those guys are dedicated racers.
Yes, they are.
They live, eat, sleep, dream. Whatever it takes to get that car to the track, and they expect you to do well. And I remember the first race last year in my late model, I had a crazy start to the season where I'd come sort of from the back, and and my car it's tough to outrun them guys, let alone even keep up with them. But my car was like, 10% better than them for some reason. And I passed him and Kratzer and Dan and Delbert came over, and just, that's probably the most sincere, he said, you and that car, I've never seen anything like that before, and he was serious, and it meant a lot to me that he really appreciated, he didn't care that he got outran. He said, I watched you after you passed me, and I couldn't believe it, he said, but he said, we got to go back to the shop and talk now. We got to see what you did over the winter. And, that car was pretty good all year, but it was probably never as good as it was that particular night. And it was off the wall, and we've all had those nights,
Yeah.
And, but anyway, a lot of thanks to those guys. And Nick's thanks would be to Bill Clanton down here. I got a lot of good customers down here, Sherfick and Money and Brian Nell and Corey Birch. And, those guys have all been great customers. But Bill's been a great customer for many, many years, and he's let me use part of his shop there. That's where I do some collision pros, bodywork stuff, and where I got my dirt racing stuff at. I just told him I needed some space, and he's accommodated everything I needed. I got an office up front and a garage door to the side door and a key to the other door. And, I told Bobby comes in there and works. I told Bill, I said, Bobby, he's a pretty good guy. Yeah. I said, well, he's going to, I need his help here. He'll be here off and on. Oh, yeah, that's fine, he just, whatever it takes. He loves racing too,
guy.
Yep.
And there's always some story, he was telling us stories yesterday, a night or two ago, but he's a good guy, so I appreciate it. Without Bill, it'd be tougher for me to get things going down here. He's made it real easy for me.
That's good. Well,
that's about it.
You need to take off?
If you need to go, we'll let you go. We'll finish up with Jeff.
All right. Well,
I know you got something you got to do.
I'll be seeing you sometime soon.
Yep.
I got a nose piece coming in for you, I think.
Perfect.
I ordered it pre-bent, pre-damaged.
Pre-damaged?
Yeah, so you don't have to worry about that first. Don't have to worry about that first scuff.
We got that taken care of.
It's already in it. So.
Okay. And I told you about, we don't need to talk about the color yet, but I've told you about my colorblind situation. Did you order the right color?
I ordered you the right color.
Okay.
Well, you wouldn't know, other than you would know if it was white or black, I think, right? Or something. So it's somewhere in between those colors.
Great.
And anyway.
Now I just need Bobby to come out and put it on.
Thanks for your guys' help, and
thank you.
we'll be seeing you soon.
Good luck this year. I know you got some friends over there you want to go chat with.
Yeah,
and,
go holler at them for a bit.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
Good luck, and thanks
Derrick,
for coming
thanks.
down tonight.
All right. See you guys.
Okay. Now we're going to continue on with Mr. Jeff here. let's talk about. Let's go back. How many years was that? 30, 40 years ago when we went to. How old were we when we took our little Dallas trip?
I'm going to say that it was at least 30 to 33 years ago.
Is that how long?
Because I think about, how long I've been out of school, and it's like, whoa.
Yeah.
So, it was shortly after high school.
Yeah.
For what did you guys do? Where'd you go?
Oh, we went on a World of Outlaws tour. We went to Devil's Bowl, and like in the middle of the winter, it seemed like.
Yeah, it was. We was looking for a place warm to spend the winter.
It was like their first show of the year down in Devil's Bowl, and then they came to Oklahoma City, and so we stopped there on the way home and kind of followed them around there for a weekend. And
at the fairgrounds there?
It was a blast.
I think that fairgrounds track is gone now, isn't it?
I think it is.
Yeah, I think so. I think that they've redone.
But it was Jeff and Rick Kippis. Rick Kippis drove, didn't he?
Yeah,
he
Rick
drove.
Kippis drove.
And myself, and did Steve Comer go that trip?
I think so.
I think it was us
I
four.
think so.
Yeah.
There
And
was like 3 days in Dallas and a day in Oklahoma City.
Yeah.
I mean, it was.
And that was back when the guys, Sammy Swindell was winning everything, and Kinzer and
Wolfgang.
Rick. Yeah, Doug Wolfgang was still running, and
Jeff Swindell was running with
Rick
Tim
Ferkel
Green.
was even still racing the sprint
Chuck
car.
Awada was there.
Rick Kippis. Well, just for a minute, just quickly, that guy takes some amazing photography.
He
does take some amazing pictures.
He has thrown away more pictures that he didn't think was any good than I have ever taken in my life, probably.
Yeah,
I mean,
he's the one that put that picture up of you winning that go-kart race.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun back then. When he was putting his camera on the go-kart and getting some pictures there. He was,
Guy's amazing.
He does good work, don't he?
Yes, he does.
Yeah.
Yeah,
we had a lot of fun.
So how was your trip?
Wow, what
Did you
a
guys
trip.
have a good time when you went on this Dallas trip?
Oh, it was.
Yeah. It was a good time.
I don't think there was a time that we didn't have fun. I mean, there was the Dallas trip to Oklahoma. There was a Fort Smith trip.
Fort Smith, I forgot about that one.
In fact, I told that story about the Fort Smith trip here not long ago.
First time I'd ever seen a drive-through liquor store.
In a bar that was open 24 hours a day. We told.
Oh no!
Yeah, we told. There was with the Cornelius was. I think brothers went with us out of Wichita that weekend. There's another couple guys that took good pictures too.
Okay, that's the photographer family.
That's his dad.
That's his dad.
His dad.
Gary's
and
dad.
uncle.
Yeah,
and
uncle. And Gary and I went down to the bar, and I remember telling Bobby and Rick, I said, as soon as the bar closes, we'll be back. Well, the next thing I know, Bobby's down in the bar. And he says, are you guys ever going to come back to the room? I said, well, yeah, as soon as the place closes. He says, it's 7:30 in the morning. And so we found out that,
Jeff, he could talk to anybody.
Oh, yeah.
It was definitely, of course, then we get back to the room, and Gary and I decide it's time to go to bed. Well, these guys already been in bed, and they want to go hiking. So we spent the day hiking through the woods in Arkansas, and then we go to the races that night again, and I think the best part of that whole weekend was we didn't have to pay for anything because we all had speed sport passes.
Yeah.
And we got into back then they had an enclosed bar at the racetrack, and that was for VIPs, and we got to go in there. And it was definitely one of them weekends that for the young, that's for sure.
Well,
that was a good time.
Doesn't know a stranger either.
No,
there was a time we were down at Tulsa, and we were waiting on our pizza to get delivered to our motel room, and this homeless guy walks up and needs a ride.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And Bobby says, "Yeah, I'll take you." And I'm like,
"What?" We ended up taking him quite a ways, too.
We went clear all the way around Tulsa. We would have been closer to drive home.
Yeah. Oh well. He needed a ride.
And you and I both went. I wasn't. Yeah.
Yep.
Took him home.
Yeah.
He doesn't know a stranger either,
No,
so don't let him
no.
tell you that he does.
No, I get picked on for being able to talk a lot, which I'll admit to, but there's a lot of people around me that can be just as good.
I got a chili bowl story for you. We all went, and we were getting ready to go out somewhere. Anyway, we walked out front of the motel. Of course, it was winter, and the roads were real slick and icy. We see this car come down the off-ramp. The interstate was right outside the motel. We see this car coming down the off-ramp off the interstate.
Oh, I know who this is.
And all of a sudden, it starts doing 360s, bouncing off the hay bales that they had. They were doing road constructions. They had some hay bales. Anyway, bouncing off of them, come flying up there, and come up to the motel, pulling up. And I'll be darned if it wasn't Jeff Crawl and Greg Ward. Greg Ward.
Yep.
They just, whenever one of them's driving, the other one's always got to mess with them. I guess Jeff grabbed the emergency brake going down the off ramp, and Greg lost control.
I can see
and,
that. I just talked to Jeff Saturday.
I can feel that.
Yeah.
You know,
Yep.
a couple of things. Jeff spent some time. Jeff helped me build the first race car I ever drove. Spent some time behind the wheel in it. Hit him, and his dad lectured us on the tires we had on it one time.
You're right.
Right before I blew it up. But boy, we raced that race car, didn't we?
We raced that a lot, and I found some pictures of that here a while back. I was still doing it. My house is an ongoing process.
My dad helped us build it.
He helped us build it, and I found some pictures of that thing, and that brought back a lot of good memories. I mean, we had a lot of fun, and then I got to see Jeff Crawl Saturday, the guy you was talking about, and I hadn't seen Jeff in years, and he brought up a few times that they were down at Hutch with us.
Yeah.
And it seemed, I told Jeff, I says, one thing about it, every time that somebody talks to me about stories, and of course, my kids used to ask me, and other people ask me different stuff, that year always gets brought up,
We had a blast.
We had
I think we owned a part of the Cowboy Casino, or what was it called back then?
I think that's what
right.
it was.
Cowboy
Whatever
Casino,
the Western
yeah.
Jeff would
bars.
come with us. Crawl would
Yeah.
meet us down there, and he'd go, "Drinks are on me."
Yeah.
Yeah, it was.
Pull the race car trailer in there and stop on the way home.
That
Man,
place was too. You had to drive right by it going home.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It just.
How we ever got home some
Stop.
of those nights.
Oh, boy.
I tell you, and Paul Dutton, he did a heck of a job down there, for 10 years at that little track. And, he called me up, or had my wife call me up, because she worked for him for 10 years. And she say, Paul is wanting you to come race down here. And so finally we get things around. This one time I told Paul, I says, I'll come race, down there for you. And I got down there, and he says, he come up one day, and of course a lot of people that we had raced against back then, and with my wife working down there, knew who I was, but there was all these people in the pits, and I had no idea who they were, and here they were coming and talking to me, and I'm going, what happened? Because I don't remember nothing, and I'm sitting here thinking, what did I do? I hope to some, and there was, and Paul comes up and he says, I've heard a lot of stories about you down here, and he says, all I can say is no more, and I'm thinking, what is he talking about? Well, after some of these guys told me some of the stories and some of the stuff that happened and refreshed my memory, I remember what no more meant. It was definitely no more of some of the things that we had.
That old car, we didn't have a sponsor one on it.
No.
My dad and I built the motor. You helped.
Yeah.
And Dad put the transmission in it. I hated that car, hated that transmission, but we finished 10th our first year out in points. Two high school kids that didn't know nothing, and sharing driving duties. You drove it more than I did that year, but we had a blast.
We had a very fun time, And
Jeff would come down with us. Oh my God, it was a hoot.
Yeah, it was. You couldn't
Anytime
ask
you got
for
Jeff
any
along.
more fun. I mean, that's what it means.
We'd
it
get in
needs to
trouble.
be.
We get in trouble now for half the stuff we did.
Yeah, we would have been
Trouble like in jail.
Yeah, that's what I was just going to say. We'd be in jail for
my son let me borrow his trailer one night. We're leaving the racetrack here. He let me borrow his trailer. Okay. So I was pretty wound up, and I didn't want to go home, and I wanted to go get breakfast. So I picked up a friend, headed over to Russell's to get breakfast. I got pulled over.
Yeah.
No trailer lights. Good Lord, if that would have been back then, I would have been in jail.
Yeah. Well, my wife will kill me, but I blame you for my marriage. You realize that because
I knew that story was going to come up.
That
you came down to watch me race.
They did.
They did.
They came down to watch you race, and that was actually, it's amazing how things work out. I won't go tell the whole story,
we
but
can stop.
Needless to say, that was the night that I drove the car. But we always had this. See, if Hutch at that time, you never stopped at the rest stop. We had our own rest stop. Well, that's where we all stopped. So you'd have this whole line of cars, and trailers and stuff on the highway. But it was, I met my wife there, so it was.
We were always getting protested with that car. Nobody knew anything about no AMC Javelins, and they always thought we were cheating. I mean, we had an AMC motor in it and everything. They thought we were cheating. They were always protesting us.
Oh, constantly.
Constantly. Of course, it doesn't help that we did have an illegal carburetor on it for a while.
Yeah, but it took him a month or so to find out. But I mean,
and then he told me he was one of the best tech men ever. It was Pettigo.
Yeah,
pulled us down the front stretch. We'd run fourth that night, probably the best that car had ever really ran. And we got tore down on the front stretch.
Yeah.
Pulled the valve covers off, and real quick, I threw the valve covers back on. Once he see that we didn't have roller rockers, throw the valve covers back on, put the hood on, put the tire rack on, and locked it. And he come back over and he goes, "How does your carburetor work? Does it have one line or two?" And I said, "It has one." He goes, "But does it split and go into two?" And I said, "Well, no, one feeds the other one." And he goes, "Get it off of there.
Yeah.
Don't come back here next week with it." The rest of the crowd is leaving. Some of the crowd is leaving.
Thank you.
Some are staying here. Thanks for coming. We appreciate it. But, we finished 10th. I still have the point sheet from our two high school kids that had never done much of anything, finished 10th. And we're racing against Jerry Phillips back then.
Oh, yeah. I remember when Jerry had a street stock.
Yeah. There was, I don't remember who all was,
I guess I'll go on record, Jeff. We've been great friends. We're still great friends. You guys even helped me out a little bit when I went back into racing this year, except for you should have set me down and had my head examined. But I have had fun.
I tried.
I have had fun. I got to admit. But, the regret I got, Jeff and Bobby, is that my dad never saw me turn a lap. Not once. He passed away shortly after that. And I really, really wish that he'd have seen me turn a lap.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because he's put so much time into that with us. He was right there with us.
He
didn't put any money in it, dang it, but we built it at his house.
Yeah, it was, we would work on it in the driveway, and I can remember cutting the spring down because we wanted to lower the front end. We're doing all this in the driveway of your house.
Yeah.
My
poor neighbors. I'm telling you.
Oh,
they
yeah.
had to hate us.
It wasn't that it was, we
had to shop out back.
Yeah, but we couldn't get to it. But but you got to be right. That's your dad came out to Salina. He used to get mad at me all the time. You got to make Bill drive. You got to make Bill drive. And I was like, I just, I kept telling him, I want him to, but I'm not going to turn down because we're not going to drive all the way to Hutch, and not race the car. And so we get to go to Salina, and by God, we kind of forced you into it that day because I went and got another ride.
I know.
And so Bill got forced into it, and he goes out. And we really never had any trouble with this car all year.
No.
We never really got any wreck. No, mechanical problems or anything, and Bill blows the car up. On hot laps.
No.
Oh, was that the heat race?
No, I was the trophy dash. I was leading for that stupid trophy. I was leading. Larry Wakefield is beating on my back bumper. Something happens inside the engine. The oil pressure light comes on, and then it goes out, and I'm like, "We're good."
Yeah,
and I'm
ready to go.
I'm going. I'm leading the race, Bobby. I'm leading the trophy dash. Doesn't pay a penny, but you get a trophy. Coming out of turn 2, it let go, and I got covered in oil, and everything went everywhere.
It was.
And
it
no
was
trophy.
definitely
That was a bad
mess.
deal.
No
Because I was
trophy.
married at the time, and I took her to work. She goes, "You going to go out to the racetrack today?" And I said, "No, I'm going to go mow the yard." Well, I went home and mowed the yard. We didn't have cell phones back then. So I called Jeff,
Yeah.
called David Boyce, called a bunch of my buddies. "Guys want to go race?" "Sure." Oh, my God. That race car laid there and puked oil out of that oil pan from all the holes that were in it. And one day she went over by the shop and she goes, "What's wrong with your race car?" Oops.
Yeah, she didn't know. It was. That was a lot of fun that year, though.
I regret that. I really wish that he'd have seen me run a lap or two, But,
Yeah,
man, I was
yeah.
leading that trophy dash, Jeff. I wasn't going to give that up.
No, that was. I don't. For somebody blowing up their motor, that was probably the biggest smile I ever seen on anybody's face. I mean, I was like, as long as he was happy, that's what mattered.
Yeah.
That's what it was all about back then. Was, it wasn't about the money, it wasn't about the points, and that's the way I've raced ever since. Though, I mean, we finished 10th, or in top 10 in the deal.
First year out, 2 kids that didn't
Yeah.
know anything.
And for 2 years, there was only 2 years after, during my career that I ever raced for points, and I finished in the top 10. So the years I ran for points, we finished. We was always a top 10 guy. But I always remembered how much fun Bill and I had that year. We didn't pay attention to the points. We didn't care. We didn't even think we had a chance.
No.
And that's the way I've tried to make it be, whether you win or you lose or, however. As long as you learned something and you had fun, it's all that mattered.
Yep.
And that's the way it ought to be because it's all right to get serious, but, today's racing has, come to a point where we don't have the barbecues afterwards. We don't see the kids as much after the race like we used to, that would come down. I mean, it's come to a point where, society has been, kind of groomed to this thing. Let's go home, and we'll go to the next race, kind of a professional atmosphere. And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, we all still stay around to get our checks and, talk with each other and everything. But, I think if somehow or another the promoters could bring back that old atmosphere that we had back when we went to the outlaw races and we were racing in Hutchinson, if they could bring some of that back, I think maybe we would see a better crowds maybe have a little more fun.
I'm not going to tell anybody how to do their job. The show needs to be consistent and needs to be timely. I mean,
Sure.
I think you get so many field of cars or so many classes of cars anymore. I hate to say that because I don't want them to do away with the late model class at all.
No,
I'm having a blast with that thing.
Well, I think especially with Tommy out here at Salina, C-Ray in Wichita. I've said for a long time I've seen Chuck bring the crate motors down. And this might be a little serious moment, but I think that, in my opinion, I seen when Chuck brought the crates. I think that was a changing point in the racing industry. Whether it be IMCA or the late models or whatever. And I think right now with the Neesmith thing going on here, in the Midwest and C-Ray incorporating the crate motors, I think it's a good thing. And I think that they're making a step towards that.
There's both sides of that fence. There's guys that like the crate engine, the guys that hate it, especially in the late model. And you probably get that in the modified too, as well, Bobby.
Oh yeah.
But I think it has its place. I really think it's brought some affordability back to racing. If it wasn't there, I wouldn't be doing it. There's no way. But I mean, I picked mine up used, but
Right.
still, it's brought some affordability back. And you know what? I got to tell you, last year was a fun year for me.
Yep.
With the crate engine stuff. The car finally, I think it was the last 2 weekends that I raced it, finally started to work right. But, I think the crate engine has a lot to do with that.
It does. It's a different setup. I mean, I know I haven't had the pleasure of running a crate motor in a modified. I did in a sport mod a few years ago. And I liked it. I mean, I thought it was a good car. I wasn't used to it.
I mean, but the car
Do you
was
feel like
drivable.
you have to drive them different?
You do. You have to loosen the car up. You have to free it up some. I felt, and you kind of are, but not yet aggressive on the throttle as much. It's a different type of horsepower from what you got as a.
As far as the late model goes, I know that you can spin the tires coming off the corner if you're not careful.
Oh yeah.
I learned that the hard way.
Yeah, you can still spin the tires.
Yeah, they're.
It ain't like it hadn't got any torque because it
No,
does.
it's it's got, like you said, it's got its place. I think it's brought back, like you said, the affordability, to a lot of the guys.
And I think it's tightened up the competition a little bit.
It has. It's because the guys
think,
like
Bob?
I think it has. Yeah, it's definitely tougher. There's a lot more cars that can win each night than there used to be, I think.
Yeah.
Yep, for sure.
Jeff, it's going on to about 8:30 here. We got all night, but
hey,
yeah.
I got stories, but we won't.
Yeah.
anybody you need to thank?
Well, I got to thank you guys for having me. For one, I appreciate it. Always enjoy being around here with you guys. Bobby's helped me do my front ends every year. There ain't been nobody else. It's always fun talking with Bill. And, we get together when we can. I got to thank my dad. He's been with me since day one. Mark Brown and him have always put a good power combination underneath for me. I had some good car owners last year, Richard and Maryland. So they pretty much just brought me their car and turned me loose on it. I mean, there ain't too many, owners that would have just sat down and said, here, you have it your way, do what you want, and they did. I got to thank my crew, Adam Hummel, Randy Ferguson and his wife. Not only they've been sponsors, but they've been great friends and pit people with me. Everybody that's really been behind me, and I got to especially thank my wife and my kids. I'm kind of looking forward to, Lisa being with me this year. We haven't done it for a long, long time, together. And it's going to be something a little different. And, I hope to have fun with it. And I just, all the people that's helped me out, I know I'm going to miss people. And, I just want to say thanks to them.
Sure. Well, good luck this year. It'll be
Thank
fun. It'll be fun to see you back at the racetrack.
Yeah, it will.
Bobby, you got the schedule in front of you.
I did. I dug them out, and this racing season's sneaking up on us. It's looking like April 1st and 2nd here at Salina Speedway is going to be their spring special. Going to run all divisions. I guess it says to be announced, but
April 1st and 2nd?
April 1st and 2nd. So it's.
Uh-oh.
He's got.
What are they running? What classes?
Practice is March 30th, and then April 1st and 2nd is going to be a spring special. So
okay, no classes listed yet.
It says to be announced,
sure.
But
and then when's the start of the season officially?
The actual opening points night is going to be April 15th.
Okay.
And it looks like some of the sponsors he's got is Carico Implements come back, which I was talking to Tommy, and they've given him another tractor to use, so that's pretty cool.
Yep.
He says a little bit smaller. He didn't need that big a tractor last year, so he's there giving him a little smaller one, which is going to be nice, fine with him. It looks like Pepsi and Coors Light and Miller Lite, Casey's General Store, of course the Neesmith late model division, and so looking forward to another summer. Hopefully,
opening night. What classes does he have listed there?
Opening night's going to be late models, modified, stock cars, sport mods, mod lights, and hobby stocks.
April 12th.
April 12th. 15th.
15th
will be the first opening night.
It says there's a note. It says, Bill, hurry up.
Yeah. And then I also picked up a schedule for RPM Speedway, and their awards banquet's coming up the February 13th. They have a car show, which I think is at the mall. You'll have to check on that, but it's like March 19th. And then they have a test and tune, which is also the 19th. And then they have another one on the 24th. And then they go into their Sunflower Classic, which is March 25th and 26th. They'll be running modifieds, stock cars, sport mods, hobby stocks, and sport compacts.
Okay.
So that's the 2 I got.
All right.
Those start at 7 o'clock, by the way.
Salina Speedway start time
RP.
says hot lap start at. What's it say?
Where does that say it? Where are you reading that?
Maybe it doesn't.
Don't know. You'll have to check. Go on our website.
Clean your glasses.
I don't think it says anywhere.
It'll be there.
Yep. 7:30ish, I'll bet.
Okay, it's Friday night.
Yeah.
So
Check on that.
yeah, we've got a few months here. We'll get the times out to you.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I got a body we got to put on a late model quickly.
Yep.
Quickly.
Okay.
So
So that's that.
Chili Bowl this weekend. You're heading out.
Yes, sir.
You going?
Friday morning.
No, we've got some plans this year. We wanted to real bad, but not going to make it this year. Going to go have dinner with my oldest son in Manhattan.
That'll be fun.
Yeah.
That'll be fun. That'll be a good time.
You know
Yeah, it's always a good time with him. You know?
the odds of a Swindell winning is going to be a little less, but Kevin is supposed to be there. I think he's fielding a car that somebody's going to drive.
One of
but
them blew
he's
up.
he's not able to
Yeah.
race yet. I've been seeing his progress kind of on Facebook and stuff, and he's
What
been.
do you think? You think he'll get
he's
back behind the
been-
wheel?
He's been making some progress. Yep,
That was a wicked crash.
Oh, boy.
Those things, man.
he's working hard at
Sprint cars just
Yep, they'll get you.
they'll get you. They just don't hold up.
Yep,
No.
never know. So, anyway,
All right.
looking
Well,
forward to
ought
this
be a good
weekend.
I think if I go, I'm going to leave Saturday morning early. Get down there. I'm just going to get a pit pass again, like I normally do. It's a fight. I know that.
It's always
I'm
a-
already ready for that.
It's always a good time, though. I always look forward to this year. I've been to every one but one since they started this thing.
Probably.
Yep, made every one of them
So.
except for one. So,
You should
yep,
go every year, didn't we?
yep.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, that's going to do it for Race Talk Live Online this weekend. Jeff, thanks so much for being part of the show tonight. Thanks for helping us out a couple weeks ago. We felt like we wanted to bring you back, and we knew you had some more stories, and you had to just drag them out.
Yeah,
Sure.
yeah.
Yeah. You had some I didn't even know about.
Oh.
Bobby, good job again tonight. Appreciate it. We'll see you in a couple weeks, folks. For David Cheria, Bobby Potts, Jeff Olson, Derrick Klima, Bill Grid saying so long. We'll see you in a couple weeks.